r/AskReddit asks, what superpowers seem great in films but would suck to have in real life? Mind reading. Especially if you can't shut it off. Imagine being in a room with a dozen people and just being blasted with every thought at once. What if it's more than that? What if you go to a baseball game with 40,000 people? And amp, number X200B, you'd melt down and go insane quickly. Twilight Zone had an interesting episode about a guy who worked at a bank or something who gained the ability to read minds. He read his co-worker's mind and discovered he was going to take the money from the vault in the bank at the end of the day, and use the money to fly all over the world. The mind reader freaks out and tries to warn the boss, but everyone just thinks he's crazy. He finally confronts the thief, and the thief says, "Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. I wasn't going to actually do it, I was just fantasizing about it. People think thoughts all the time that don't reflect who they are or what they're actually thinking." Indestructible skin because I might be kidnapped and C4 shoved up my bumhole. Well, if it ain't the invisible cunt. X-ray vision, because face it, looking at skeletons all day every day will get old fast if you have an appreciation for the fleshy bits. Equals. But most of the time superheroes can turn their abilities off. There are exceptions of course, but still. I bet if you could rapidly heal you couldn't get intoxicated. That's even mentioned in movies. Wolverine is always drinking, yet you never really see him drunk. Cap even says because of his accelerated metabolism, he can't get drunk. Actually, that would be a great superpower to have. Think of all the bar bets you could win. Super strength. Imagine how many things you'd accidentally break. Heck, you could accidentally hurt someone giving them a hug or shaking someone's hand. There's a Superman comic where he talks about living in a world of paper, always having to be careful. Flight. To put it shortly, there are many ways you could die, unless you're also invulnerable. Lack of oxygen, especially if you went too high too quickly, the windburn, the freezing temperatures, increased radiation exposure. Sounds like a blast. I feel like super strength would be dangerous. Obviously there are some super great benefits to it, but I feel like the initial learning curve would be really dangerous. High five to a stranger? Their arm is in Canada. Pet a dog? Congrats, you have a new fur pelt. Beating off? God save your soul. Immortality would have to be the absolute worst. No escape from the constant pain of everyone you love dying. If I had the opportunity to achieve immortality, I would make it so that I'm immune to everything related to old age and sickness. However, the only exception is injury, for example me being immune from drug-resistant illnesses, but not to fire. That way I can fulfill dreams only immortals can but still be human and not look like I have hero's immunity or something. Laser vision, having to wear those special glasses all the time, like indoors or at night, is going to make everyone assume you are either a beg, blind, or a creep. I assume you are referring to Cyclops. IIRC, there was an origin story that suggested he couldn't control his ability due to a head injury he suffered as a child. I could be mistaken though. Super speed. In order to not hit anything while you run, your mind would have to go as fast as your legs. I don't think anyone's mind can go that fast. Another one would be invisibility. If you were born with this power, you practically wouldn't exist and your parents would be quite confused. Also, if you were not seen, people would constantly bump into you, push you, and you might get locked out of public or private areas. If you developed this power over time, your parents would be immensely concerned if you were not visible. I think most speedsters are also written with fast mental processing for that reason. I know that's at least true of the Flash. Hyper-fast running speed. The amount of food you'll need to eat to not burn off muscle and fat would be astronomical. Kinda reminds me of the comic books. The author goes into that with one of the characters, but that doesn't really go anywhere. Having wings. What kinda wings we talking about here? I mean, if my superpower was I was able to conjure up unlimited Buffalo Wild Wings, that would be awesome. I could solve world hunger. Shrinking or growing. Alongside of shrinking and growing, you are now altering your atoms and compressing or expanding them beyond what is physically possible. You'd just explode in every instance. But if a superpower interacted reasonably with physics, you'd still now, if you grew, spawn flesh mites, bacteria, viruses of gargantuan proportions. These super microbes would fall off you and devour all the multicellular world. Their skin, too tough to penetrate. Conversely, shrinking, now every virus or bacteria is like a tiny bug that you can see trying to stab you with its proboscis. Shrinking would only be cool if you marginally shrunk, but not like Ant-Man where it's extreme. Those giant microbes would be unable to survive for a moment at our scale. They would be big water balloons that split immediately. I've seen other people saying invisibility, but they're forgetting the biggest downside of it. Now theoretically there's two ways to be invisible: by somehow replicating the scenery behind you on your skin, clothes like an advanced form of camouflage, or just by simply not reflecting light at all. This would make you completely invisible, but it would also mean you'd be blind if light simply ignored your retina. Invisibility. It's such a creepy power, it's always used in shady, creepy ways. In reality you wouldn't be able to see anything because there's no light reflecting off your eyes. Probably someone else wrote it, but flight, the worst thing is that all the bugs and shit you would came across is so much that you could fly without having little piece of shit smashing into your face. If you were to wear some sort of protection, then the thing, probably glass, because, you know, you can see through it, would also hit those shits and you just couldn't keep the pace and clean the thing ahead of you. If you were to fly so high, that little stuff wouldn't impact your face at 100 kilometers per hour, then you would probably freeze to your death. Since there's a reason that those things don't go up so high, they would also freeze to death. I saw others saying invisibility. I don't imagine invisibility as a thing that's just a passive ability and from at some point nobody can see you. I would think that it's something you turn on whenever you want, and I think that would be cool. You never know. Teleporting. It seems great at first, but you wouldn't want to walk or go anywhere after a while. You can just appear there. But no one can see your powers, so you slowly turn into a recluse and only go out at night, literally popping in and out of your favorite spots around town. Telekinesis. Imagine thinking how you'd like to have something and it suddenly flying toward you. Great, right? Until you see something on TV or someone steps between you and the thing you need. Imagine a child stepping between you and the bowling ball you summoned. Running really fast but with actual physics. If you ran past people at the speed of light, you would most likely heat up the air enough to the point to incinerate nearby people and objects. Imagine being an airbender and having butt burps. On a more serious note, there was one superhero film with a teenage couple that had elemental powers. One could make fire and the other one had ice breath. They couldn't get intimate because they'd give each other burns and frostbites on accident. super hearing because if you can't turn it off then you're constantly being bombarded by noises at dealing levels, and invisibility because you would have to be naked and you'd be blind because you can see by light bouncing off your eyes, but if your eyes aren't there then you're blind. Phasing. You become intangible and thus have no mass or traction on your feet, and therefore can't move forward, or have to awkwardly stretch your arm through the wall, rematerialize your hands and push yourself through from the other side, or take a running jump to phase through a wall. Or, you have mass, and fall through the center of the earth to the other side and back. Or, you make the surface you touch intangible, and could potentially cause a building to become structurally unsound. Super speed could get killed pretty easily. Invisibility would be blinded. Talking to animals, reading minds, if you couldn't shut it off. With super speed comes the constant feeling of impatience as the normal pace everyone else moves becomes glacial. The Flash, moving in nanoseconds. I mean my loved ones and friends would use me to buy them food in minutes, do something on their behalf, and I can't refuse. BCZ. It will take less time to do it than arguing. It's the superpower that I would wish someone else in my circle should get instead. Time travel. You would age differently than everyone else in your life. I've been daydreaming for months on how it would feel like to have a glass-bending superpower. Using glass as a superpower is something I've seen only a handful of times, but if I had to get used to the power the hard way, I could end up giving myself huge scars. And after watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I think anyone that isn't born with abilities is gonna have a hard time learning their powers. Freezing time. Light would freeze, too, meaning you'd effectively be blind until you unfroze in time.